Do you like Harry Potter? Maybe Game of Thrones? Me, I'm a big fan of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. It has everything. A war between the light and the shadow, magic spells woven from 5 elements, a dozen kingdoms, 13 forsaken mages, monsters, maidens of the spear, a crystal sword, and most of all, the water cloak. Standard issue to the elite warriors who accompany women who weave spells, these cloaks are made from a fabric, made from magic. With no static color of its own, rather it shifts between reds and browns, greens and grays, blues and blacks, whatever it takes to blend into the background, be it forest or rocky hills or brick and mortar. Standing, a cloaked warder appears a disembodied head. Sitting in a saddle, even parts of his horse may appear missing. Moving, the cloak reacts, but not instantaneously. Due to a small lag, the cloak shimmers. To an unwitting foe, this blur induces a headache or even nausea, giving the warder a significant combat advantage. My favorite quote about the cloak comes from Egwene, a hot-headed young country girl who quickly grows into one of the strongest spellweavers. It is the last battle, and this general is walking through her war camp. Egwene silently contemplated the water cloak. Its color-shifting nature made them nearly invisible. Why don't I have one of these cloaks? She thought with annoyance. Why should they only be for warders? Boy, can I relate. Can we craft this magical item, this color-shifting cloak, in real life? It turns out nature already has. Millions of years of evolution have led us to... the moth? No, they can only blend into one background. Perhaps the chameleon. Nope, too slow. I'm talking about the octopus, and the cuttlefish, and the squid. These aquatic cousins are called coleoids, and they all have color-shifting skin. How does it work? Let's freeze time and look very closely at the coleoid skin. We see layered colors, much like a landscape by famous American oil painter, Bob Ross. At the bottom, we see a white background, our canvas primed and ready to go. In the middle, we see bright little globs of glitter. They resemble emeralds, or glimmering green vegetation by a lakeside. But a few moments ago, they all look gold, and in a few seconds, some of them will turn turquoise. Like mixing paints on an easel, this lovely chaos helps the coleoid skin really shine. At the top, we see tiny spots of dark paint, brown spots, crimson spots, and orange spots. Like autumn leaves on a tree, they add life to the picture. But that's not all. These spots are connected to muscles. Like opening a fist, these dots explode into blotches 300 times their original size. We see both big blotches and tiny dots in the snapshot, forming a pattern. If we zoom out, what do we see? A vibrant painting, the sun setting behind an Alaskan peak, or a cute little squidopus. And if we unfreeze time, the sun really sets. Incredible! How do they do this? Well, Bob Ross was a master, so his paintings come to life. But the octopus, if you look really, really closely at its skin, you see some weird proteins. Proteins are kind of like a mix between Lego bricks and origami. They can build many complicated structures, but they can also fold into many shapes and forms. When these skin proteins transform, the octopus is allowed to shapeshift, emerging from this reef like a ghost. We want to copy them, but we can't slaughter them to harvest their proteins. The good news: my colleagues in the Gorodetsky group have developed a way to grow these proteins in bacteria. Now we can play with the protein in our lab and understand how it works. The bad news: we still don't have enough. And we need a lot of material if we want to make something useful like clothes. We need something better. And that's where I come in. I learned in high school that proteins are big, messy polymers, long molecular chains. Just like silk, and rubber, and nylon. Today we have so many different kinds of polymers for different purposes with different properties. Food, cars, clothes, you name it. And here's the kicker. Since they're much simpler than proteins, synthetic polymers are easy to make and cheap to buy. Which is great for me, because I'm not a chemist, I'm an engineer. I love to play with the stuff that chemists make. So I bought a few. Now, as Bob Ross would say, let's have some fun. One of my favorite ways to do this is making spin art. You just drop some ink onto a piece of glass and really spin it. The dried layer can be 1,000 times thinner than your hair. I can repeat this process with different polymer inks, making a stack of layers. Depending on what goes into the stack, it'll have a color. Now remember those skin proteins I mentioned? Inside the animal, they shapeshift due to electrical, mechanical, or chemical forces. I can experiment with my stacks and see what will cause them to shapeshift. maybe electricity, or maybe heat, maybe moisture, or bass from a subwoofer. Who knows? That's the fun of it. One last Bob Ross quote, "We don't make mistakes, only happy accidents." Science is just like art. Even if I don't make what I intended to, the results are equally exciting. In the short term, I hope this project leads to programmable clothing. Never again will we have to worry about matching colors again. Importantly, this will save us a lot of natural resources once we stop having to make new clothes every year. Instead, let's just program different fashion styles into our already existing outfits. Future generations will appreciate this approach to both style and sustainability. In the long term, I hope we can conceal ourselves like the crafty coleoid. The goal is to craft a magical item in real life. With nature as our inspiration and synthetic polymers to play with, we can do it. We can have water cloaks for everyone.